Hello everyone, and a warm welcome to a new episode of the Sappi Blue Count, where we get a chance to talk about all the latest developments in the world of Sappi and also delve into all the most important trends in the paper industry. Today, our topic is Packvertising and the power of brands at the point of sale. To dig into this topic, I'm very pleased to welcome two guests. Beginning with Olaf Hartmann. He is CEO of the Multisense Institute für sensorisches Marketing. So for those of you who don't speak German, that is the Institute for Sensory Marketing. Hello to you, Olaf. Good to see you. And from Sappi, I'm pleased to welcome Lars Scheidweiler. He is Head of Packaging Solutions. So greetings to you, Lars.
Thank you.
So why don't we start maybe just with a general overview of what you consider to be the essential functionalities of packaging. I mean, maybe people think they know what the essential functionalities are, but just to have an overview would be great. So could you do that for us?
Sure. I mean, packaging, when you think of it, there's basically about 5 blocks. Considering that it's got to deal with protection, so keeping its valuable content. It's about definitely functionalities, enabling the use of the product. It's about logistics, the distribution from filling to getting to consumers, not least considering the sort of end-of-life scenario and secondary applications for packaging. Big topic is this cradle to cradle, the environmental aspects. There's legal implications, of course. Things that you have to consider when you deal with this packaging topic as such. And finally, last but not least, it's about communication. And I think this is what we're here for today, basically.
Absolutely. So of all the functionalities that you mentioned, I guess communication is definitely the most complex one because it happens on so many levels, right? So we're not just talking about the purely informative type of communication, like what is in the box, there's shoes or there's cereal or there's toothpaste, but we also have a marketing function and of course there's brand communication. And now, Olaf, I understand that your institute looks at the power of sensory experience in communication. And we all know that that, of course, can influence customer behavior. I know there's a lot of science behind that. Could you maybe just explain to our viewers how all of this science then is applied when looking at the impact of the sensory experience for customers?
Right. Yeah, the fact is that in the last 20 years, we've learned more about our brain and how our brain processes signals than in the 200 years before. That doesn't mean that everything was wrong that we discovered before, but it was just added so much. And one of the most amazing and surprising findings, which practitioners actually weren't surprised at all to find, is that we are influenced by very small implicit signals that we don't consciously process. And this effect is called priming, for example. And one experiment which makes this very tangible is that when you touch a cup of hot coffee and you interview somebody, afterwards you judge him to be emotionally more competent and a more warm person. Or when the opposite, when you touch for 20-30 seconds a cold drink, suddenly your judgment about the same person that was trained, because it was an actor in this experiment, to exactly say the same words with the same pronunciation, but the judgment completely changed. And this is something which is happening every day and it constantly surrounds us. Yeah. So these, and that was one very interesting way to understand that our brain basically has this conscious processing of seeing something and discovering, I wonder what this is. And then there's this subconscious processing, and Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize as a psychologist for economics, discovered this system 1, system 2 thinking. So we have this very powerful system in our brain which constantly works, which we're not conscious of. And to show you how powerful it is, we consciously process about 30 to 40 bits of information per second consciously. And at the same time, we process 11 million bits subconsciously. And all these signals that our brain uses to make judgments very often come through sensory signals like the sense of touch, the sense of smell, sound. And traditionally, marketing was very much focused on the visual cues that you have. And now we know so much more about that we as human beings, that we process our world constantly in a multisensory manner. And the reason for that is that our brains evolved like that. Like we used to be like our ancestors, they go through the forest and they hear something, and it has some relevance. You hear something and you notice a quick movement out of the corner of your eyes, and suddenly it's more relevant. You hear something, see the quick movement, and smell something like a saber-toothed tiger breath, very relevant.
Oh dear.
If you don't react to that in split seconds, you weren't our ancestor. So everybody that survived created a gene pool that is very good in deciphering multisensory patterns. And now we come to marketing. If you understand that our brain is activated by every additional sense that you employ to impart your product benefit or your brand promise, that the brain is activated by 1,000%, so 10 times more, then you know that if you exploit that, if you actually put it to use, that you have a competitive advantage. So this is what sensory marketing is about. And to make this big field of discovery a little bit more, practically applicable on Monday morning at your desk, we created this model which is called Arriva model, like to arrive, like the Latin words. Everybody wants to arrive, everybody wants success. And it stands for attention, recall, integrity, value, and action. And if you think about marketing, these are the dimensions that you think how you can improve the marketing process. If you have more attention, it's better. Better recall, it's better. If people believe you, more integrity, even better. And if people are willing to pay more for what you have to offer, still better. And if you can actually create action, like create impulses that people react to and actually buy more often, that's the best. So that is basically the field of sensory marketing, and it has a lot to do with packaging, because obviously packaging is something that you can experience with all senses. You see it first, then you touch it, then there are acoustic sounds in the way it opens, and smell can be applied, so it is really a multisensory field to use for your branding.
That is some really fascinating stuff. Olaf, I love this idea, or I guess it's the research that shows that holding the cold drink makes people feel more negative about somebody, and a warm drink. I have to remember that the next time I interview people, so not to have too many cold drinks in my hand.
It may cloud your judgment.
It may cloud my judgment, absolutely.
That's right, yeah.
But I would love to hear then from you, Lars. So knowing what we know about the importance of the sensory, the multisensory experiencing when it comes to packaging, as Olaf just mentioned, so how does Sappi approach it then?
Well, actually, as Olaf said, since we're collaborating and we also have lots of own, I would say, internal competence, we consider these things touch, haptics, functionalities, the ability to print, to finish a product during the process of developing a substrate. But thinking that Sappi is just a substrate provider of paperboard and paper and leaflets, whatever, that just simply fulfill a simple demand when it comes to a certain print method, I think that's a bit too shallow. There are specific developments where we really, in our coating process, really test out the warmth, the touch, the emotions it delivers, next to the capabilities of being able to run certain processes, of course. So I think it all ties in with each other. Yeah.
And so then, knowing what you know, Olaf, your institute also has an advisory function, I understand, that you advise companies about how they can maximize the impact of, let's say, their brand packaging. What would you then say are some of the basic guidelines that you would recommend?
The basic guidelines come from the way we process how we arrive at decisions. And the first thing is, we don't buy brands, we buy categories. Yeah. And then we choose a brand within the category. So the first thing we need to ensure is to understand the context within which the brand is perceived by the consumer. So you need to understand the patterns of the category. So by what signals, colors, shapes, any other kind of presentations do people understand that what you have to offer belongs to the category. And then the next step is like to make your product benefit or your brand promise more like to stick out, to be distinct. Yeah, so it's basically a function. You need to be part of the group, so people recognize you quickly, and then you still need to be distinct. And this distinction needs to be relevant. And what is relevant for people? If anything caters to your goals. Yeah, so you need to understand. You have to start always with what people actually want out of a product. And there's always Theodor Levitt from Harvard Business School had this great saying. You know, people don't want they don't want a 1/4-inch drill. They want a 1/4-inch hole. Yeah, but actually they don't want the hole. They actually want the shelf on the board. Yeah, so there's an added complexity of the functional goal. But actually they don't only want the shelf on the board. They might want to improve the look of their room, so they want to express their creativity. They might want to have everything in order, so they want discipline, you know, have everything in order. Or maybe it's because the wife nagged them for half a year and they want to see the eyes light up. Finally, you put that shelf on the door. So they want recognition. Yeah? And the positioning of the brand has a functional side and an emotional side. So once you've done that, you need to understand that most of our processing, like I said, the 11 million bits is happening subconsciously. You need to make that promise intuitively understood. So then you look at what are the signals that actually cater to these mental concepts that make my product very attractive. Yeah? Like how does innovation smell, or how does freedom feel? Yeah, and like you said, with structure of packaging, that can have a great effect of what mental concepts are activated by that. Again, an experiment which was done originally by collecting donations, and there was a clipboard, and on the back of the clipboard there was a smooth surface or rough surface. And the people that got the clipboard, it said like, this is what you should donate for. And the people with the smooth surface, they donated 3% of the people donated something. With the rough surface, 26% of the people donated. And why? Because the roughness activates a certain mental concept, and in that case, it's danger. And when do you give to charity more easily? When you yourself feel a little bit in danger, when you're a little bit off balance, yeah, then it's much more easy to feel, oh, this must be terrible to be in that situation. I got to support that person. Whereas when you feel really snug, you know, everything is running smoothly. It's already coded in our language. Everything runs smoothly. Why should I give anything? I'm safe. So you see how powerful this effect is. And now, what we need to find is if we want to activate certain concepts, not danger, that might not be a good concept for a product, but it might be, for example, a natural feel. Like, what's the right surface to feel natural? And you cannot say this is exactly the surface that creates the feeling of natural, because in nature there are snakes that are super slick, and there are other things that are super rough. So again, it's about the context. But once you've decided, okay, this constituting signal, like to make it even more tangible, like freedom, you want to communicate freedom. So what would be in a sound, in a sensory way, what is the sound of freedom? I ask you, you give me different answers. But when I ask you, what's the sound of freedom of the sea? Suddenly, I get two answers. One is a seagull, the other one is waves. So suddenly we have a constituting, like a signal that actually activates the whole resonance field of freedom of the sea. So once we've decided what the brand is positioned on, which resonance field we use, then we look at how can this be translated to the packaging. So what is the surface? And then you need a substrate, a carton that is actually able to emulate that surface, and by doing that, improving the selling power of the packaging. Okay,
so if a brand owner then has clarified what kind of associations, what kinds of emotions they want their customers to associate with their brand or the brand packaging, Lars, what role does Sappi then play in making it possible for these kinds of associations to become tangible then?
Well, we're actually the ones that cater to we're the enablers. So we have to make sure that we keep all these surfaces, the glossy, the silky, the matte, the basis weights, from the very low end to the very high. So whatever they like to express with their brands, that it's available. It's catering, of course, for the distribution network, whether they would be serving the US or they want to serve Asia or Europe or Africa, we'll be there for that. It needs to be that also whatever we offer needs to be suitable for the existing technologies. So whether this will be print technologies or finishing technologies or technologies which are just now at the edge of starting, making sure it works in the future. Mostly, I think it is, and that is really, really underestimated. It's not just talking about this one pack, this one perfume, this one cosmetic box, this one whatever it is it's of course it's getting that one right. But then how does the communication, the marketing communication, which is our topic today, look for that specific brand value for this product, for this category in the graphic communications, in the distribution channel, maybe for corrugated, etc. We as Sappi, we're in a unique position. We can really provide solutions, answers with regards to consistency throughout the entire communication channel, whether this is for online shoppers or whether this is for in-store use or whether this is for just making marketing in magazines or other things, and it'll be completely consistent. Recently, I'm very proud of that really, is we have managed to create functionalities and we have given a functionality to paper, to wood fiber-based products similar to plastics, creating barriers, creating new functionalities that were thought impossible just a few years ago. And all of a sudden you get your environmental stuff right, you get your marketing branding right, you get your protection of the goods right, you get, it's a completely new world that opens up. And we are very, very happy to share that experience and that knowledge and that, bring that to the brands, bring that to the converters, bring that to the brand owners, and make it a better packaging in the future. And it won't stop.
So I'm just curious, the more we do learn about the sensory experience when it comes to packaging, how packaging can contribute to communication, to brand experience, and also impacting customer behavior, all of these things. So how do you see the future role of packaging in brand communication? Like where are we going moving forward in the next couple of years? Maybe Olaf and then you, Lars.
I think packaging is being discovered at the moment, also as a media. Like if you think of the contacts, just the amount of contacts people have with the packaging, not only at the point of sale, but also after purchase. Like ignoring this in your branding strategy would be quite dangerous actually, because if your competitors are doing this, they will have a competitive advantage. And you can see the most valuable company in the world, Apple, has dedicated so many resources in optimizing the packaging, and they managed to actually influence, when I talked about this, how do we recognize things, like with the seagull, like signals. You create signals that in the brain of the people immediately activate a concept. And they managed actually by really thinking very carefully about how they package their products, that in the dark you will recognize an Apple product when it's packaged. And the supplier industry is actually using those codes to actually show we belong to this world, we are adaptable. Yeah? So suddenly this code that they created in the type of packaging they made, in the way they used varnish, in the touch, and in the precision of that everybody knows from movies like Star Wars, how those doors open. Yeah, it's like that kind of precision when you open it. That influences actually your perception of the product that is inside. Yeah, without having one experience, you already know that it has to be a precise product, that it's super high tech and all that. And so that shows how powerful this can be in influencing value perception, but in also coding a brand. And companies that will do that from the beginning in a strategic way will have competitive advantages in being more distinct, being more mentally available. And in the end, brands grow by two things. That's mental availability and physical availability. And packaging can have a very great influence on both sense, but also the mental availability is strongly supported by good packaging, which carry the brand values. So that's my opinion, that it's really like a field that still offers a lot of potential.
And what about you, Lars? Do you see the role of packaging as growing?
The importance of packaging is definitely growing for many reasons. I mean, if you look at the global food waste, which is sort of 20% because of insufficient packaging. I mean, every expert knows about it, so there's a lot to do. I think the key functionalities that I've listed, they will not change, but what is going to change is the equilibrium between all these functionalities. We will see, and we experience it today, and we will see that in future even more so, that the environmental impacts that come along with packaging, their significance will definitely grow. So there's a call to action to producers, to finishers, to converters, to brand owners to be more conscious about the impacts of their packaging. And we as Sappi, we will have to contribute to that throughout the entire chain. New technologies will arise. There will be solutions today, maybe let's talk about environment and marketing and metallized structures that are put onto packaging, which makes it difficult to achieve a recyclability goal. Can we invest in technologies? Can we have new technologies that would allow us to come to the same results, the same visual impacts, the same haptical impacts, the same brand effects, but lowering the implications that it has on the environmental side, etc. So it's a never-ending story, and I'm sure that once we get over one hurdle and another one, it'll be an endless story. It'll continue, and it's going to be a really, really fascinating thing to be in that game and to positively contribute to all these elements.
Yeah, and it's like you say, it's like the packaging puts the brand in your customer's hand. Yes. Yeah, so you want to maximize that impression that you create with that packaging, and at the same time give them a good conscience, a good feeling about the impact to the environment. And there's so much to explore and so much ways of making your brand distinct by packaging. So it's really an exciting field, like Lars says.
Yeah.
Olaf Hartmann and Lars Scheidweiler, gentlemen, it's been a really fascinating talk with both of you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you, our viewers, for watching. We hope you join us again for the next episode of the Sappi Blue Couch. And until then, take care, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.